2D is fine. And Bivens underscore T button game. And this is week 11, believe it or not. 8. And create. And that'll take a second. So go ahead and do that on your end. And then we'll start working on that. All right. Let's go to the description of the game, the actual assignment here, which is, what was it? 9, maybe. Yep. And I'm going to do that. All right. So, and I shared notes with you that were actually from a previous year that gave you some ideas to how to do some of this stuff, but it wasn't even complete, right? But anyway, the button game, a button that increments the score every time it's pressed, a countdown that ends the game when it is a 0, display text to say game over when the game is over, a button to allow replay of the game, splash screen to start the game. Now, the splash screen sounds, that's what a lot of people got hung up on. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But the short answer is to use panels, and we'll get to that as soon as my project opens. And I can't remember, it was either Landon or Jacob who had turned it in, and they were worried that they did it somewhat differently than I did. Honestly, if it works, all right. If it works, where are we not supposed to use a different scene? You can use a different scene if you want to. I'll do that rant in a second. But in short, simple games, it's better, in my opinion, to not switch scenes if you don't have to, right? You should know that when you do a scene switch, all the data you have from one scene is lost unless you do something specific to try to retain that data, right? And that's a data persistence issue, right? So if you don't need to change scenes, don't. And you can use panels for UI switch, like game over, your splash screen. Use panels, you can just turn them on and off, and you're not actually switching scenes. And therefore, you don't have to worry about the data persistence part of it, right? It makes your life easier. If your game's really simple, it just makes your life a lot easier, and we'll see that in a minute. So, let's see if my project's open. It is. All right, let's get started here. It's a weird look. Let's see. All right, so what does it say we need? All right, we're recording. Is there any lag? Are we experiencing any significant lag? Oh, man. All right, well, I want to barrel through this because I'm recording it, and it'll be something you can watch later. Hopefully, the lag won't be too awful. All right, so let's look at these. So we need a button that increments the score every time it's pressed, a countdown, and a score, right? So there's two text items and a button, right? So let's do that real quick. All right, so we're going to go game object, UI, text, right? We are going to, let me do this real quick. All right, there we go. We're going to pin this text. We'll anchor it at the top middle. We'll call this the count, and we'll name it countdown text. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and change the background to black. Change the countdown text to Countdown text will be red. Right, so we'll do that. We will overflow, and we will make it 28. And we'll also move it down somewhat. All right, so there's a countdown text, and now we just need actually, I'm going to just duplicate that. That way, all the setup I did for that I won't have to do again. I'll just duplicate that. I'll come over here. I'm going to anchor it to the bottom. So hold down Option, boom, right, and I can drag that up some. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Right. Whoa, what was that? Use a game manager for this instead of attaching it to the camera. Is that okay? Yes, that's better. And I'll be doing that in a minute. What was that? Sweet. Yeah, I mean, the stuff in the book we're attaching to the main camera because it's just simpler, right? And because the book isn't creating a game manager. But once you get past the most basic programming stuff in Unity, you will almost always create a game manager, and there will be a game manager script. That's why when you create a game manager script in the project panel, it actually has a little gear on it, and it's the only script. And if you have to name it exactly game manager for that to happen, right? So it's so common that they created a little icon for it. All right. So anyway, the second text I'm going to call. We will call score text, right? All right, so we have our two text, and I'm actually change it to green, so it'll be differentiated from the timer. There we go. All right, so we have two texts. That's all we need. Then we need a button to click. All right, so game object UI button, and I'm going to anchor this squarely in the middle. So hold down Option, right? And we'll just call this. We'll call it score button, right? All right. Score button. All right. There we go. All right, so that's our basic setup. And I mean, these aren't lined up like I'd like them. Well, let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I'm going to just do that. And we'll center them like that. There we go. All right. Okay, so now we can start scripting the basic game, and I'll show you the panels and stuff in a minute. All right, so go to the project panel. We need a script folder. Create folder, scripts. Seems like I'm not the only one that likes to avoid updates. No, you're not. What was the wow for? I missed that. One sec. I can't hear anything. Can you hear me now? Can you hear this? All right. Can everybody else hear me? All right. Anyway. Okay, good. It'll be on the recording. We have such little time. So little time that I want to get through this. All right, so open the scripts folder. I'm going to create a game manager now. All right, so create C# script and call it game manager. And you'll notice as soon as you do that, it turns into a neat little gear icon. All right. Now we're going to open that the correct way by going to Assets, Open C# Project. But it's back now, I guess, Taylor. Like I said, I'm recording this, so it'll be up there, and you can, whatever you missed, you can catch up that way. All right, so the score button, I'm gonna say click me like that. All right, then we're gonna open up Visual Studio. It's probably spinning right now, trying to open. So now once the script is over, we're going to create a function that's going to handle the button clicks, right? And we'll have to have a score variable, and let's see, have to have a reference to the countdown, and a reference to the score text as well, right? So we have to say, system using unity.ui or whatever, right? Here we go. All right, so like I said, we'll need, we're accessing the UI, so we have to say using Unity engine.ui, like that. And we need references to those, right? So we're going to say public text, what is it? Countdown text, right? And public text, score text, right? And of course, we need to actually. Is it somebody? Would somebody say something? The displays are just text items, right? They're not the actual scores themselves, right? So because they are strings, we can't really do any math with them, right? So usually when you have a display, you have a variable that corresponds with that actually does the work behind the scenes, right? So we actually have to say public, if I can type, all right, public, a countdown is going to be a float because it's going to actually count, fractions of a second, right? So countdown timer, we'll say, right? And public float start time, right? This will allow us to change what the countdown starts at, right? And I suggest no more than 10 seconds because when I grade these, I don't want to wait a whole minute to find out if it works or not. So honestly, 5 seconds is great. It gives plenty of time to see if it works and that it stops and does what it needs to do. All right. So start time, we need score, right? So public, and that'll be an int because scores are even numbers always, right? So int score. All right, so how's the lag now? All right, it's good. Excuse me. So we're going to create a function now that just registers when we click the button, and then we'll work from there, right? So public void handle score button. All right, and we just make a stub function by saying debug.log. All right, now when you save this, we can connect. Let's go connect all our stuff in Unity now, so we have a semi-working something going on, right? So in the Unity, let's create an empty game object called Game Manager. So I'm gonna say Shift Command N, which is empty game object. You'll notice it creates it up here. Hit Enter and just get rid of the object part. Type Manager. Good to go. Always put your game manager at the top of your hierarchy, so just drag it up here like that. Because it's the top thing, you should always be able to find it easily, so you want to do that. And then take the game manager script and plop it on the game manager. Then inspect it to make sure that it is in fact there, right? And now you have a couple empty objects over here we need to connect. So countdown text is going to be countdown text, and score text is going to be score text. All right. So now we just need to connect the button so that when you click on it, it calls that function, right? So let's click on the button, click on the plus here, and we need the object to which the script is attached, which is the game manager, right? And remember, when you click here, it's going to take you to the assets folder. You don't want that. There are times when you would use that, but I don't know why it defaults to that. Most of the time, you go to the scene and you want something in the scene, and you want this game manager, not the script that's directly in here, right? Note the difference. The script has little icon. If you go to the scene, the game manager is a game object, and that's what you want. So you click that. And then once you have that object, you find the script that's attached to that object. Note there are other scripts that are default, like game object transform. But game manager is the one we created, and there it is. And we come down here and say handle score button. Now when we click the button, it should, in fact, put something in our console, so we're going to test that right now. I'm going to save my project for real quick. All right, so let's run it and just make sure the button works. All right, it's running. I click the button, and indeed, I get the debug log over there. That's good. Okay, now let's increase the score every time we click the button. All right, so let's do that. Let's go to our script. It's always good to have a function that's. I know we have a start function, but that's when when the scene first gets loaded, that start function gets called, right? And if we start this game again without actually reloading the scene, things won't get reset. So it's always good to have a start game function that calls all of these all that reset functionality, right? Because when the game starts, we want the timer to go back up to where the starting time is, right? And we want the score to be set to 0. So let's create a function called public void start game, right? And we're going to call this at the start of the game. And so obviously the start time the start time we'll set in the inspector. That way it'll make it easier. But we're going to say start game, the countdown timer equals start time, right? So the start time is something we set, and the countdown timer at the start of the game will start there, right? And then the score equals 0. Simple, right? And so in the start function, we are going to call that, right? We'll call it later on when we restart the game, right? So we'll say start game. All right. So that's simple enough. Now we can edit the handle score button to actually do some scoring, right? So I'm going to say score plus plus. And we say score text. Sorry about the lawn care outside, but what are you going to do? Score to string, right? Because it's a number, you have to do that, right? So now, let's do this too. Score text equals score to string. That's pretty annoying. All right, so now when we start the game, this should turn to 0, right? And when we click it, it should change. So let's see if it does, right? I saved it, right? Yes, it did. All right, so it's 0. I click, our score goes up, right? So that's almost half the functionality we need right there, right? All right. So that's pretty simple. Now we just need to count down, right, and show that, right? So, and this is where I think it was Jacob, one of y'all, because I didn't get to show this last or 2 weeks ago, right? You want to, anytime you have to change the time, you want to do that. If you're working with time, you want to do that in the update function, right? And what we're going to do, because the update gets called every frame, and one of you kind of did your own working time, kind of gauging how fast your processor worked, right? But you never want to do that because you don't know what computer your script's going to end up on, right? So you have to, when you're dealing with time, you always want to use this variable that is built into the system, and it keeps track of that, right? So we're going to say countdown timer minus equals time delta time, right? And I'm going to copy that real quick, and I'm going to put that in our notes. I didn't put anything in our notes, right? So what the hell? What do you mean I'm signed out? God damn it. Oh, God. Why have I been signed out? All right. Anyways, this is the time change since the last frame. One thing I've noticed is instead of doing the .toString thing, you can instead have some string. Yes, you can do that. If you're concatenating, if you concatenate a number, numerical value with a string, is one of the few times that C# does what's called implicit conversion, right? Remember that if you're going to be a programmer. It implicitly converts the number to a string, yes. If you don't necessarily have any string to concatenate it with, in this case, I'm just showing the number, right? So I'll do a toString there. But if you have if it's a number and you have some kind of any other text there, then yes, you don't have to say toString. Yes, it implicitly converts that. All right. So this should, in fact, change our time. All right, and we'll just do it this way. All right. So we're going to say countdown text equals countdown timer toString. And there's some formatting things. What? Why is it doing that? Dot text. Okay. So this should give us our timer. Well, actually, this is going to do something weird, but you'll see, and I'll explain why. All right. We don't really want it to do it this way, but what you'll see is it starts, starts right off the bat, right, and it goes in the negatives automatically, right. So that's not what we want, right. All right. All right. I don't want to do all that there. All right. I need to sign. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. I need to see something. All right. I need to figure out why my account is signed out. All right. So. So I need to have these notes open. All right, I think I'm good. Refresh. All right. Now I can share again. All right. Time change since last frame, right? That's really important, and you'll use time delta time all the time, right? No pun intended. So kind of burn that into your brain because time delta time is used so much, it's crazy. All right. Okay. What we need to do now, we need to define game states, right? And we do this by creating enumerations, right? Enumerations, right? If you've ever been in a class where they say number yourselves, right, and you go around the class and the first person says 1 and then the second person says 2, so that by the end everybody has a number, right? Everybody do that? Yes. That you have enumerated yourself, right? You gave everybody a number, right? And enumerations in programming sense are just a fancy integer, right? They have names, right? It's a way of, like, if you want to define like game states, right? Like pause, playing, menus. These are the states the game can be in, right? Before enumerations were invented, what you would do is you'd have an integer that for each one of them, right? And like 0 would be playing, and 1 would be pause, and 2 would be menu, or so like that. And you would just have to somewhere in your comments tell the programmer and tell yourself what those numbers meant, right? Enumerations allow us to give words to them, right? And when we write them in code, it's very clear what we're talking about. So that's all enumerations are, right? And we're going to create one right now for our game state. And it's above the class because it's actually a kind of a global variable, right? And you say public enum game state, and say playing, paused, menu, right? So note the curly brackets there, and then you can put as many game states in there as you want, right? And then we're going to have a variable called, what you've done here when you do an enum is you've created a new data type, basically. So I'm going to say a public game state, right? See how game state pops up now? We're going to put current game state. So this will hold what the current state of the game is, right? And this is important because when we start the game, you notice my clock started immediately, right? But we want to base whether that starts immediately on whether the game is started or not, right? So we had to create this game state so that we know that, right? So the current and start of the game, start. All right, let's see. The start game will actually change the current game state. Current game state equals game state playing, right, like that. All right, and then in our update function, we will only update the timer if the current game state is game state playing, right? If current game state equals game state playing, right? and we're going to wrap that up with curly brackets like that, right? So now what we've done here, right, is we've created a situation where the update gets called every frame, but it's only going to update the timer if the game state is playing, right? Now, in our case, we're calling the start game immediately. All right, it's like Minecraft's game rules. Yes. I mean, those game rules are, I mean, there's code behind them, so yes, it's exactly like that. That's a good analogy. Always up for a Minecraft. Whoa, that's loud. All right, so in this case, it's not going to change much because we're calling the start game function in the start function. All right, so one thing we need to do is come in here and let's go to the game manager and let's give our start time a value like 10 seconds. And you'll note that it does start immediately, but it'll start at 10 now because before I had it at 0, right? So it starts at 10 and quickly counts down, right? And this still works. That's good. All right. All right, so what we need now, right? So we essentially have the basics of the game, right? It needs to stop when we get to 0, right? So let's do that. Let's have a game over state as well, right? Game over, right? Let's see. I think it's time to show you the panels, so we can go ahead and put a start panel in there, and with a start button, right? So let's do that. That way I can show you. It'll make more sense, I think. All right, so let's go back to Unity. All right. Now I'm going to put a panel in. Panels will take up by default the whole screen, and they're usually semi-transparent, but you can make them completely opaque, which is what we're going to do. All right, so let's go game object UI panel, and you'll notice it looks like kind of grayed out because the panel, like I said, is semi-transparent. But you can come over here to the color, and you can say turn the alpha all the way up, and boom, you've got a panel, right? It's a start panel, so I want to make it green. That's kind of ugly, all right, like that, and we'll call this the start panel, right? This is the same thing as a splash screen. Well, they can be, right? In our case, the game's so simple that our start panel is going to be our splash screen, which is what I asked for, right? So the start panel is there. So we just need a text object on that panel. So make sure it's a child of that panel, right? And we'll call this logo text, right? And we're going to center that and center there, right? And we're going to overflow. Man, I'm running out of time. It's too late. It's a 1 hour thing. It's nice, and they'll only have an hour to do it, but then I only have an hour to do it. And let's see, we'll make it like a bright yellow, right? And and we'll call it button game, and we'll make it. All right, and then we need a button. Create UI button for the start button, right? And we'll drag that down here, and we'll just say start. And we'll call it start button. Start button. All right. So you'll notice that there's the start panel. Start button needs to be on the panel as well. Make sure all the pieces that are supposed to be a part of that panel are actually children of the panel. That way, when you turn off the panel, see, I can click on start panel here and click that. All right. And that's what we're going to do in code. We're going to turn that on and off. All right. All right, so let's see. All right, so every time I do this game state thing, I always have a function that changes the game state, which you should always do, really. And you're going to say public void change game state. And we're going to say game state new state. Right? All right. Then I'm going to do something called a switch, right? Which is based on the game state you passed in. And we'll talk about this later, right? So switch. Jesus, if I could. So let's see, menu. And I'm just going to create kind of stub switches, right? Start with just trying to get through all this. All right, playing. Which one I don't have. The switch statements very much, it's basically a shorthand for a bunch of if-else statements, right? And I might have to go over the more in depth later. But for our cases, just copy what I have there, right? But what this does is this one function allows you to control all the different panels that are on or off, right? So here, if the game state is menu, right? I'm going to comment this out now, right? Because what we want to do is, why does it do that? When we click the start button, the panel is going to go away. We're going to go in the gameplay state, the game playing state, and everything will start up, right? So at the start, we're going to say current game. Actually, we're going to say change game state menu, right? So we want to start at the menu, right? And if the menu is that we need a reference to all of our panels now, right? So right now we only have one panel, right? So public game object menu. We'll call it menu panel. All right. All right. And if the state is menu, then this menu panel is panel set active is true, right? No, it's okay. Type. All right. And I'm just going to copy that, right? And because the only thing different in each one of these is going to be that this is going to be false, right? so here in our start game function, what we need to do, once you have this get change game state function, anytime you want to change the game state, always use it, right? Because it keeps your code clean and it makes sure that all this kind of secretarial work gets done, right? See, like I've done here, I don't want to do it this way. I want to say set change game state playing, right? And then I'm going to take that line out, right? That keeps my code cleaner because now this function here will take care of all the background work I got to do, right? So all right, so what I can do now is call the start game function when I click the start button, right? So let's go in here and start button. We're about out of time. Game manager. Sorry about the lawnmower or the weed eater, as the case may be. Handle start. Whoa, start game. All right, now, right? So when I click this button, it's going to call this setup function here, right? And it should change our state. And at that point, the the start panel should go away, and we should see the countdown start, right? So let's do that. I didn't assign something, right? So get the menu panel right there. It's a start panel, but all right. I didn't name them correctly. Sue me. All right, so now this should work. All right, so start. There we go. Right. All right, so at this point it should stop, right? So now we're almost there, right? We have a game. It keeps a score. It starts when we need to. Now we just need a we need a game over panel that will show us what their score was and give us a chance to play again, right? So let's create a game over panel. In fact, what I'm going to do, I have the start panel already set up that has a button, right, and a text, and I can duplicate that, right? I can click on that, say D, right? And now I have a start panel, and I'm going to say, I'm going to just rename it. Whoops. Start panel, game over panel. I can just change the text to say game over. And let's see. I'm not going to worry about the score displaying right yet, right? So let's just get it game over first because we're about out of time, right? The start button is still hooked up because we duplicated it, right? We can just say play again, right? All right, so we just need codes. God, I wish it weren't mowing grass over there. Let's see. So that should do that. All right, so we just need to indicate to check to see when we're out of time, right? Oh, this is annoying. All right, so if, well, we're just checking here, right? Because this is where we're checking for if we're playing. So this is the only time we need to check it, right? So if countdown, why is that not? Countdown timer less than or equal to 0.0 if change game state to game over, right? And then in here, we say, we need another. We're about out of time. Have a game object, right? Game over panel, right? And then in here, let's see, game over panel set active true, and let's just copy that. The thing about these switches is in each one of them you have to address each UI element, right? False. So that you make sure that only the things you want displayed are in fact displayed at the right time, right? Alright, so now this should turn our game over panel on when the game is over. I think that should work. I'm going to make it I didn't assign that. 1 second. There we go. Game over panel there. Alright, now. Alright, it should play. But I don't know why that started, right? So now we'll see if it ends correctly. Yes. Alright, start. Alright, so that's basically the whole thing right there, right? I don't know why. Let me see. I did something wrong that. Let's see. So, panel. Huh. God, that's annoying. Alright, so let's see. I'm not sure why that's not going away when it starts. Because I changed it to menu there. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to figure that out. I mean, it's functional, right? But I don't know why it's going to the game over. It's starting with the game overs panel, and I'm not sure why. All right. Anyway, are the questions about that? I know I kind of flew through that. I will have the video up hopefully by tomorrow. I know I've been slack about that too, but I don't know. Life is a bowl of cherries. Questions about anything? And the countdown timer's still running too for some reason. Let me see. Why would that be? So that has something to do with it. See, the countdown timer's still running. So there's something I'm missing because I went through it so quickly. Let's see, the current game state still says playing for some reason. Um, hmm. Oh man, I'm the stupidest person in the world. All right, let me stop that. See, I didn't save the file. I rarely ever do that. Let me see. Let's see if that was all it was. I'm gonna kill myself. All right. Well, now see the countdown timer's running, and I don't know why. I have to figure that out, folks, because I'm not sure why that is. And the state says playing. Why is it playing? That's weird. I'll have to figure that out. All right, so it appears to work though. It says playing. It still says playing. All right, I'll figure that out. But we're getting close. I'll figure that out. I'll let you know what I come up with, why that's doing that. But if you get it as good as I've got it right here, then you're fine, right? But I will fix that because I'm not sure what I'm missing. I'm missing something because I think I went through it so quickly. So I'll figure that out and I'll let you know what I come up with. Any questions? Because we're out of time. So. And if you need a personal consultation with me, do a personal WebEx or something, let me know. I know that some of you are still trying to catch back up, and I understand that because so am I, really. This semester has been not fun. So if you need some help, let me know, please. Email me, and we'll work something out. All right? I know this whole year has been hard on everybody, so, I can understand that. So let me know if you need any help. Well, if you need to discuss something, we can. Just let me know, and we'll work something out. We'll set something up. All right. All right. I'm going to stop recording.